Oh, look at this. Look at this girl. Look at this girl.
Well, good day to you. You're going to revisit this 2012 YZ250F. I may foolishly have decided to rebuild this thing. It's kind of crazy because it needed pretty much everything but a head. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you all the parts and the work to put this thing back together. So, just as a refresher course, the crankshaft had come apart, broke its way through the front of the case. It also did some damage to the transmission gears. Some of them are chipped. Right there you can see that. It also came up, hit the cylinder. The rod hit the bottom of the cylinder, broke that, and the piston had some marks on it. So we don't take any chances with that stuff. So let me show you what I ended up getting. I ended up getting a brand new takeoff cylinder. I guess the guy went with like a big bore kit for it. I got this at a really good price. So piston, cylinder, obviously put a new timing chain on this. We don't take any chances. I ended up grabbing a set of cases off the Face Space Marketplace. And this was a little bit of a learning curve on these engines, and I'm going to try and share what I learned here. So I was not able to find the proper cases for this without buying brand new, which would have been, I think, upwards of $9,000 or $1,000. So it just wouldn't have made it worth it. The years that these cases fit are 2010 to 2013. 2014 was different. Prior to that, the cases were different as well. I'm going to kind of walk you through what I found out about it. Okay, so the crankshaft on this particular bike was good from 03 to 2013. In fact, I have a whole Hot Rods bottom end kit here, and that's what it fits. It basically fits 2003 to 2013. Now 2001 and 2002, the crankshafts were a little different. I believe they were a little bit longer, and the journals were a different size, so they wouldn't work on this particular case. But the 2003 to 2005 cases were, I believe, a little bit wider in the bottom because it could fit in the steel frame. 2006, they went to the aluminum frame and they had to narrow the cases up. So I know with a little bit of modification you can make them fit. 2006, 2007, and 2008 were all the same. And then 2009 is where they changed them. I'm going to show you what the difference is and what I had to do. So basically I got a 2007 left case, which is the same. It's no problem, works perfectly fine. And I could have used a 2007 right case as well. But where they, excuse me. But if you look at this right side case, you can see where the bolt is drilled out. You can see where the drain plug is drilled out, and that's because the frame is pretty tight in between there. And the 2006, 7, and 8, the drain plug is on the side. The 2009, they actually made this stronger on the bottom, this boss. It was not drilled out though, so I guess they were anticipating for the following year. This is not here for the 2006, 7, and 8, so drilling through to be able to drain would be very weak. You'd have to weld some kind of a bung or a boss in there. So what I got was a 2009 right case. And if you look, there's your drain plug on the side, just like the previous ones. But the guy I got it from was a machinist. He just went ahead and tapped out the boss so we can actually drain it that way. And I'll just block off this one with the original drain plug. Now I've already gone through and cleaned everything and lubed everything. I'm going to be replacing these main bearings anyway with the kit. Now comes the fun stuff. This kit is Charlie Bravo Kilo 0087 CBK 0087 is a complete bottom end kit. for the 2003 to 2013 YZ250F. Let's open it up, see what we got. Comes with a Vertex gasket kit. Comes with some foam. I'll save this for something. I don't know what I can use it for, but that's some good heavy duty foam. Engine seal kit. Main bearings. Now for some reason on here it's saying Crankshaft Yamaha YZ250F 03 to 2011, but this kit, according to Hot Rods, is supposed to fit 03 to 13. Our next step is going to be replacing these main bearings. First thing to do, get these in your freezer. Get them getting cold, cold, cold. Next thing you got to do is get your case heated up, not your bearing. You can either use one of these heat guns from Harbor Freight. Pretty inexpensive. Hair dryer will take forever. The aluminum case is going to transfer the heat into the bearing pretty fast, so the quicker you can get it heated, the better. I generally don't use this. I like to use MAP gas torch. You can use oxyacetylene as well. You got to really be careful because that gets hot very fast, as does this. So you don't want to do any damage melting the aluminum. Once it's hot, flip it over. I'm using a bearing driver, a seal driver. There you go. Knock that out. On these bearings, you're going to pay attention here to the orientation. So they have a little bit of a lip, and that's going to face towards the inside of the case or towards the crankshaft, because these little tabs are going to lock this bearing in. Little tip, when you go to drive these back in, don't ever drive them on the inner race. These little ball bearings here it's hardened, but it could potentially dent the race and cause issues. So you want to definitely find something that's as close to the size of the outer race as possible, and that's how you're going to drive this in, not on the inner race. And reheat your case. We'll try and drive this in as straight as we can. Make sure when you're putting this back together, you're using Loctite. I think from the factory they peen them over too, so they don't go anywhere. Get them close to the factory peen. I don't mind taking a little precaution and re-peening them. Okay, move on to the second one. On this side, we got to turn it over and not removing the transmission. I'll generally just throw a rag over it and run some tape around the whole thing to keep it all locked in. All right, now we're ready to install our crankshaft. It's going to be the same routine with this. We're going to put this in the freezer, and I'm going to lightly heat the inner race, and this should slide together. Now, when we put the cases back together, it's a little trickier because you're not going to be able to cool the crankshaft. You may be able to heat the bearing. So there's a tool that I use, and it's fairly inexpensive, to pull the crankshaft in through the bearing, and it protects it, the case, the bearing, the crankshaft, from damage. You don't want to go whacking on these edges here. That'll definitely destroy it. Heat that. Got our frozen solid crankshaft here. Going to slide this in. The tapered end is going to go towards the left case for the flywheel. See that? She slides right in. Now we just want to be sure 100% that all of our O-rings and fittings and everything else are all in here the way they're supposed to be. Everything's ready to go, and we will use our RTV to make our gasket and put these two together. Well, didn't really need to use the tool. Heated everything up and it pulled on. But there's actually a tool that can go on here that will pull the crankshaft into the bearing. So there she is, new rotating assembly, bottom end. Now it's just a matter of putting this thing all back together. This gear will only go on one way. I'm hypocritically going to tell you to follow the torque specs on this. This gear also only goes on one way. The end with the extension goes first. Don't forget your ball. Tighten these slowly in a cross pattern. This is why these engines fail. I mean, just change the oil every once in a while. When you put this circlip in, always cover your crankcase. These things have a tendency of flying on their own, and if they go down inside of there, you just made yourself have a bad day. Also, when you're snapping these in, you don't want to bend them too much, so it's really a fine, delicate dance here. Because if you bend them, then they won't hold. They'll fall off, your pin will walk out and destroy your cylinder and piston again. Before you slide your cylinder on, you want to set your ring gaps in the proper position on the piston, and I'll put a diagram on the screen so you can see where those go. I like the gasket that's on here, the stock factory gasket, so I'm just going to keep that. The biggest thing you want to be careful of is making sure that these rings are sliding up into the cylinder and they're not folding over. Can be tricky. So yeah, this oil control ring is getting caught up here. Probably a crazy time to start looking at this head, but I want to check if these valves are bent or tweaked at all. And an easy way to do it is brake clean, water. Just pour it right in there. And if these things were tweaked or not seating, you would see it start to seep out. And I'll do the same thing with the exhaust side. You'd see it seeping out around the valve, especially if you put air pressure in there as well. So if you empty the water out, put a little air pressure behind it. You see around this exhaust valve right here. I'm actually getting a little air through it. You can see right there where my thumb is. That valve has got a little bit of a leak. The other one looks good. It's quite obvious. You can see water coming out of that one as well. I'm going to pull these two valves and check them. Might just have to re-lap them, but if they are bent, I'm going to have to replace them. The one that was letting some air and water by, I chucked it up in a drill so I can spin it. And this valve is not bent at all. It's in really good shape. There's no bend in the shaft. The head is not wobbling. I'll probably just pull all the valves, re-lap them in, clean them all up. I checked all the valves and they're all good. The kit came with new valve seals, so we'll go ahead and replace those. Just refresh this head. you look at that little thin gray line, that's where the valve is seating. And it looks pretty good. It's a little bit low on the valve. It should technically be right in the middle, but I'm not going to let that stop me in this particular case. This is going back together. Once you're done lapping everything in, rewash everything in hot soapy water. You don't want to let any of this grit stay inside of here. It will tear this engine apart. Install your new valve seals, and now you can put your head back together. Our next step is to re-shim these valves. To do this, we need to set our timing marks up as if we were putting the engine back together. On the exhaust cam, you can see there's a dot right here. That's going to line right up with the head. On the intake cam, there's an I and an E, intake exhaust, and that should go directly across. One dot 90 degrees up, and then two across the head. This is not super critical right here. This will be more critical once we're putting the timing chain on, but right now we just need to keep the cam lobes off of the buckets. In general, what we're going to do is put these on, torque them down, and then take a measurement in between the camshaft lobe and the bucket and see how much space there is and compare it to the specifications that Yamaha has. But I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like they're dragging already. So I'm going to see if I can take a quick little measurement before I button everything up. Without the caps on, I got them all at the minimum spec that the book requires, just to be sure that they weren't touching when I put the cam caps on. So now that I put the cam caps on and I've torqued them down, now I can go ahead and get my actual measurements. And I'll go ahead and put the specs on the screen for you. So this is where my valves are. The 2 exhaust valves, the 3 intake valves. I need to be within this range, 0.10 millimeter to 0.15 millimeter. I'm above on all of them. In other words, the gap is too much on all of them. Exhaust 0.20, 0.28. This exhaust valve is in spec. Don't need to touch it. So this one here, I need to close the gap up, which means I need to put a bigger shim in all 3 of these. All right, got them all re-shimmed. 0.20, 0.18, 0.14, 0.13, 0.13. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our head. Now before we drop our head bolts in, put a little bit of oil on the threads and on the washer. 27 on the big stud bolts, 5.1 on the 6 millimeters. Yeah, that's about 5.1. Yeah, 5.1. Next we got to get her on top dead center so we can get our cams in. I do not have my magneto in or my cover on so that I can see where the mark is. Another way to do that, just stick a long screwdriver down in the cylinder. You can actually rotate the engine until that is at its absolute top center. There it is, TDC. I'm just going to follow those timing marks that we looked at earlier. Remember, we don't want to rotate the crankshaft at all. So there's our mark. We got to go over a couple teeth. There she is, lined up with the head. So there she is, top dead center. Mark is good on the exhaust cam. Marks are good on the intake cam. To back these tensioners off, you just take this center bolt out, on the Yamahas anyway. Some Kawasaki's and Suzuki's will be different, but you just take this center bolt out, put a flat bladed screwdriver in there, and you can just turn it clockwise, which will pull your tensioner in. Once you get it in all the way, you can just hold it. And if you ever do one of these tensioners, brand new, they come with this little metal key. And you can stick that right in there. Just hang on to these things. And when you do that, it'll lock it in. Pull the key, that'll tighten your tensioner. Now at this point, what I want to do is make a couple of full rotations on this engine and then recheck my timing. Now remember, because this is a 4-stroke engine, it actually has 2 top dead centers. So if you put it back at top dead center and your marks are way off or not even close, roll it over one more time. As you see, we rolled it over. Timing marks are lined up, top dead center. Also, another indicator will be your Woodruff key will face straight up the engine on top dead center. on ethanol. No ethanol. All right, let's put some fuel on. Choke doesn't stay out. Maybe I won't need it. Got some squirts. What? Probably need some choke. She runs. I'm pretty happy. I'm going to recheck the oil, recheck the coolant, and I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this rear shock, get that done. Go through the rest of the bike. If it needs brakes, anything like that, I'll get that done. If you want to see the video of when I got the bike and tore it down, I'll put the link right up here. As always, I appreciate you guys watching for sure. Throw me a subscription, really helps the channel out. Thumbs up, make a comment, hit the bell, let you know when my new video comes out. Definitely appreciate it. And once we get this thing together, this thing should be a beast on the track. We'll see you guys next time. Whew, lucky day.